All right, we're in. We're in the Matrix.
We're in. We're recording. Even though Big Sur almost stopped that.
Yeah. There's Big Sur to contend with. I'm a big fan of Big Sur, Rob.
Do you know what? I am as well. You published your story, and as I do with all these big reviews, I didn't read all of it. I skipped around the sections that I care about. But do you know what? I kind of looked at the screenshots and thought, well, that looks nice. It's different. Waited for my colleague who always updates first because, I don't know, he likes to do it. Turns out there was no problems. So, yeah, I did it. It must have probably only been like a day or two after you published your review.
Yeah, I've been living with it on... I had it at one point, I still have it on a 2014 Mac Mini, a 2015 MacBook Pro, a 2016 MacBook Pro. But then on my 2018 Mac Mini, which is my main machine, I was running on an external SSD. And that I did that for a while, but then I gave up eventually because during the betas, there was something going on where you had to basically wipe the external drive and start over in order to get it to work. It wasn't updating properly on external drives. And that is just such a huge hassle because not only is the install time, but you have to deal with, setting up your system and getting the apps that you want and all that sort of thing. So I basically got sick and tired of that and just mostly ran it on a 2016 MacBook Pro connected to an external display most of the summer, which was perfectly fine and good. But it was really nice since I didn't really experience any like showstopper bugs during the beta, I waited a couple of days, mainly because I was burnt out from doing the review and just didn't feel like dealing with it. But I installed it on the internal drive on my Mac Mini too, my main machine, and it's been fine. I mean, I know people have had issues with like audio hijacked. Some people, I have not. Audio hijack is not production ready, as Rogue Amoeba has said, so you kind of do it at your own risk. I was willing to risk it because I always have QuickTime to fall back on, plus my audio interface that I record with, it has the ability to record to SSDs. So I've been doing that. So I don't know. It's I like it a lot too. I'm really happy with the design. And it was this review took a lot of time because partly a lot of it was what you said. It was there's so many screenshots in there, and a lot of it's like side by side comparisons and getting those so that they look nice and are relevant is hard. And I did a few little screen recording type movies in there, and I don't know. It's just design is not something I write about a lot, and so that section alone, which was quite long, took a very long time to write and to get right.
Yeah, it's definitely... I mean, screenshots, I think, is really what sells it because, I'm sure there's underlying features that I don't care about. And, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff. And, obviously you've got stuff like widgets and all of that kind of stuff, new versions of Catalyst, whatever. But just to look at it, it's like, all right, this is very different. Being able to have widgets and, you've got I guess you call it the control center. Right. I guess that's what it's called because it looks exactly like iOS. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I was kind of just sold because I thought, well, it's different, so that's interesting at least. Because generally these updates just are so boring. I think the last couple of years I really haven't updated, or if I have, it's been like 7-8 months later because there was nothing. Unless there's some kind of like syncing problem with like notes or reminders, I just haven't bothered updating in the past. Whereas this time it's like, oh, okay, this is actually different, so I'm going to go do that now.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think that I think part of the reason for doing it is, in fact, encouraging people to update. One of the reasons for changing the look is to get people to update, because then it will, once they get the new features, they bring along the Catalyst stuff that helps encourage those kind of apps to work. And once you have the M1 Max coming out, then iOS and iPad apps will be available on it too, which I hear is not a great experience. I do not have an M1 Mac yet. I have one coming Friday. I haven't tried that, but yeah, I'm looking forward to trying those out. I'm really looking forward to the Macs. I was very excited about that event and the initial reviews that came out. I mean, these things are incredibly fast. I got a MacBook Air, and it's a pretty reasonably priced computer. It's one of the lower end computers. It's it's got 16 gigs of RAM. I got a 2 terabyte SSD, but it's still pretty reasonably priced, and it's as fast or faster than a 16-inch top of the line MacBook Pro. So that should be kind of fun.
Yeah, I'm fully aware of that as I record from a 16-inch top-end MacBook Pro
exactly.
that cost 3 times as much as a MacBook Air.
Right. I mean, there are limiting things, right? Like the fact that it's only got 2 USB-C ports. That's kind of a bummer depending on what your setup is. Like the Mac Mini, which only has two USB-C ports, that wouldn't do for me because I've got too much stuff connected to this computer. But even you can use hubs and stuff like that, but my 2018 Mac Mini is perfectly fine, so I wasn't going to replace that. But I don't really have a laptop anymore that I like. I've got the 2016 MacBook Pro, and it's got the bad keyboard and the battery. The reports on Big Sur is that the battery is at 75% of its original capacity, and during the betas, boy, it drained fast, and that's probably in part due to the fact that it was a beta, and betas are not known for their battery efficiency. But, it's not a great laptop anymore, and I really don't need a Pro since I'm not doing development work anymore, and at most I'm doing a little bit of logic work here and there. For the most part, all I really need is a something that's really kind of the equivalent to the 13-inch iPad Pro, but a Mac for those tasks that I do that are kind of better on a Mac, which there are still things like that. So glad to have it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty, when I bought this laptop, I kind of knew that this was like, right, well, this is it now. This is probably going to be my last like Intel Mac, right? Because the rumors were coming. We knew this was coming. I think I got this just before WWDC, so we hadn't actually had the announcement yet. But I knew it was coming. But I'm still happy with my decision. But when you look at the benchmarks between these two machines, and like I say, like my laptop was nearly 3 times as much as one of the new MacBook Airs. I'm kind of excited for 3-4 years when I replace this. What is that top-end MacBook Pro going to look like? Because if this is what the bottom-end Air can do, it's going to be wild.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And what's interesting to me too is what we haven't really seen, I think, yet is a lot of reviewers really figure out. At least I haven't seen head-to-head an 8 gigabyte and a 16 gigabyte RAM model. I guess it's unified memory now. Model go head to head, right? Like 2 MacBook Pros, one with each configuration, and see, because with the memory being unified now, it's not necessarily going to have kind of the same characteristics of doubling your memory as it would be if you're using an Intel Mac and doubling your RAM from 8 to 16. It's going to be different, and it seems as though even an 8 gigabyte MacBook Air can handle some pretty incredible, transcoding and other RAM. I guess that's maybe more CPU intensive, but memory intensive type work, like having a lot of tabs open, for instance, in Safari. So it'll be interesting to see, if does that unified memory kind of change the calculus as to how much RAM do you buy? Because I used to always kind of buy the most I could possibly get, especially on a desktop machine that I was going to be doing most of my work on. I would try to get a lot of RAM, but now you can't, at least for these initial models. And I don't know if that matters, how much that really even matters anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right. That was something that I sort of got from the reviews as well. The one I've got here is a 64 gig of RAM in this MacBook Pro, but I'm like, okay, so in a few years, like, are we going to be in a situation where actually like 32 gig of RAM is sort of quote unquote the equivalent, in terms of, like you say, like performance and having stuff open and all of that kind of stuff? Like, as you say, it sounds like maybe that calculation has changed, and buying the top end thing, although, like you said, it's the kind of thing we probably both do, it maybe isn't necessary.
Right.
But I think it's going to take a couple of years really for us to see what's this lineup going to look like when all of the Macs have got M1s, and like what's the differentiation going to be between them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I've kind of in the position where an Intel Air would have been fine for most of the work that I do anyway. But the fact that the thing's got a lot more horsepower now just makes it all the more capable for when I'm using something like Logic. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. It's coming on Friday. It's originally wasn't coming till like the day before Thanksgiving, but now it's coming a little earlier, which is nice. And I didn't tell you I've got a HomePod Mini. I've been playing with that.
Ooh, yeah. I've been eyeing those up as well.
It's pretty neat. I mean, it doesn't have the same quality sound as the big one as you would expect. I mean, it's incredibly small compared to that. And so it doesn't get as loud, and it's not maybe as full a sound as the big one. It definitely isn't. But it does get surprisingly loud anyway, and it is very dense, and it works great. I mean, I've been investigating Thread radios, Rob, and it's got a Thread radio in it, which is something that has been around for a long time. I think it's been around since 2014, but it's only really taken off in the last year or two because Google Nest uses it and the HomePod Mini uses it. And what it does is it creates mesh networks of any compatible like HomeKit devices. So like one of the advantages of that is if instead of the problem with like Wi-Fi devices is that you get a lot of Wi-Fi devices that can overload your network, and then the communications become difficult. And if you use Bluetooth, the range tends to be pretty short, and so there can be issues there as well. But these form a mesh network of their own that's independent of your Wi-Fi network and doesn't work the same way as Bluetooth. So they can just kind of daisy chain themselves, and they use the Mini, or in the Google's case, the Nest, as the interface to the rest of the internet. So the rest of your Wi-Fi network. Those are what are called a border router. So it's pretty neat. It's like it's not gotten a ton of press yet. I mean, I'm working on a story about it for Mac Stories, so I'll have more details. But there aren't a lot of devices that support them yet. But they are very low power, which is another thing. So, for instance, two companies that have announced products for this are Nanoleaf, which makes lighting, and Eve, which makes a whole bunch of different HomeKit devices. And so things like door sensors, where things that you can't plug into the wall. So like a door sensor that has a battery in it. It's great to have this thread-based system because it just barely sips battery. And so you don't, you maybe only need to change or recharge the batteries every several months as opposed to every few weeks.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds really cool. The HomePod Mini, now it's hit that price, because I was always interested in the HomePod, but I always just looked at the price and thought, I'm not paying that.
I
just, regardless of how good, you or anybody else can tell me that the sound was, I was like, I don't want to pay that, because I don't listen to music in the house that often. So if I do, I don't want to spend too much money. But now with the HomePod Mini, and it's like, what, £100 or something, I'm like, yeah, I could buy that. Like that's a decent enough price that I can buy it, even if it's not like a perfect thing, which, I think we know it's not because it's got Siri in it.
Right. Well, and, I know, obviously there are plenty of things you can get that are less expensive because, of course, immediately people say, oh, well, but you can get an Amazon Dot. And that is very true. If what you really want is just the smart home assistant of Alexa, that, you go for it. But it does have very good sound for a much better price than the original HomePod. And in fact, I find it's better in my office now because my office isn't very big, and having that big HomePod in here was more than I needed. So like I barely ever had the volume up above like 15 or 20%. So I took it up into our living room, which is bigger, paired it with the other one that I own, and now it's like a stereo pair for listening to music or connecting to the Apple TV to watch movies and stuff like that. And the little HomePod Mini just sits on the shelf in my office, and it's perfectly good solution for that.
Yeah, I think I might buy one in a couple of months. But I may have spent a lot of my money on something that's coming tomorrow.
What goodie do you have in the post?
I have my PS5 got dispatched today.
Nice.
And it is flying. It's been to like 3 different Amazon fulfillment centers already on its way down to me. So
where did it start? Did it start in the UK somewhere, or did it start somewhere else?
Yeah, it's all in the UK, but for some reason, it's been to like 3 different sorting centers, and I think now it's at the final, their final warehouse, which is normally where my deliveries come from.
Well, my MacBook Air started in Shanghai, and now it is in Japan. So, and it claims it'll be here on Friday. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure they can get that here. So yeah, it's PS5 release week for Europe, because the US and I think Canada have already had it. Australia and New Zealand, I think, were the other 2 countries. So. But yeah, everyone else is getting it tomorrow.
Right.
So, mine got dispatched. Well, I haven't actually had an email from Amazon yet, which is a bit concerning. The only reason I knew it was dispatched is because they charged my card. And then I went onto the website. But they haven't actually emailed me to tell me, but I'm guessing that's just a mistake.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I still haven't been able to order one. I've tried. I had a chance. There was a day last week where, I think it was last week, yeah, when they were on Walmart.com, and there were like 3 or 4 slots during the day when they would show up. And I tried the first one, and I actually got one into my cart, but by the time I could actually get the checkout page to load, it said out of stock. And I did. I didn't get it. So, and then, I mean, last week was just insane for me with the review coming out. So I really didn't try again. It's like, I really don't have time to compete with bots. So I haven't really tried super hard. I did get a Game & Watch, a Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch, which from Amazon,
nice.
Which I like. I just love kind of that old nostalgia retro video game stuff. And it's fun. I mean, you can use it just as like a desk clock, or you can play the games on it. It's got Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario Brothers 2, plus a Game & Watch game with Mario. So, yeah, it's just a silly little thing. It was like $50 or something like that. But yeah, it's that came at the end of last week, so that was my treat to myself, I decided, for getting that review out the door finally.
Yeah, no, you definitely deserve
So
it.
what game are you going to play first?
Well, I think I'm going to go with Astrobot.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Because from what everyone's told, I have 4 days off. I've got Friday and Monday off work, so I've got 4 full days to play. I'm going to give Astrobot a look first, because everyone kind of says, "Oh, that gives you a better sense of what the DualSense can do."
Oh, sure.
By all accounts, it looks exactly like the kind of game I like. I like those sort of 3D platformers. But you've probably seen on Twitter. So I got Spider-Man Miles Morales last week. And then when we were doing our grocery shopping the other day, Tesco had Sackboy: A Big Adventure for £50. So I was like, well, that's a really good price. I'm going to pick that up now. That's like £10 off retail. And then, even though I'd pre-ordered it, I cancelled it because I sort of changed my mind, and then I changed my mind again, and I ordered the media remote as well.
Oh, cool.
So I've got a couple of games. I've got Spider-Man, Sackboy plus Astrobot, which comes built in. I've got the media remote because I bought Back to the Future 4K Blu-rays. That's basically the only movie I'm ever going to buy on 4K.
But now you have a remote to go with it. I think that remote looks really nice.
Yeah, before I'd put the batteries in, I was like, oh, this feels really light and cheap. But actually, once you put the battery in, it gives it a little bit of heft. But yeah, all the buttons feel like decent quality. Obviously, I haven't tried it on anything because I don't have a PS5 yet, but hopefully it will come tomorrow at some point.
Oh, that sounds really good. What was I going to ask you? Yeah, that remote. Oh, do you have an Apple TV? I don't remember.
Yeah, I've got two.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I've got 2 Apple TVs.
So do you think you'll use the TV app on the PS5 ever, or do you? I guess you don't really have to if you've already got an Apple TV.
Well, I might do, because the Apple TV in the room where I play games is not the 4K one.
Oh yeah, it's the 1080p, so third whatever the generation before that was.
Exactly. Yeah. So I may switch to the PS5 because obviously all of those apps will support
Sure.
4K out of the box, rather than me having to buy another Apple TV, because I don't, as much as I like them, I don't particularly relish spending another 130 quid or whatever they cost, just to upgrade to 4K.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense, especially to get 4K without having to buy another Apple TV. I mean, and that's something to keep in mind, because I don't have a 4K Apple TV either, because I don't have a 4K TV, but I have been thinking about getting one. And if I do, one route to go to get the 4K would be on the Apple TV would be to just use the app. Knowing me, I probably would just buy the Apple TV too, but
well, yeah, of course,
but because business expense. No. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes with the PS5, because I really want to get one. I just it's just not. It doesn't look like it's going to happen this holiday season, I don't think. I mean, there's another Walmart sale going on tomorrow, I think. So I'm going to try again tomorrow and see what I can do. If I can remember, I'll set up some alerts for myself and maybe be a little more diligent about it, since this week's not been as crazy as last. So maybe I can get in there and get ahead of the bots.
Yeah, it's kind of funny sort of seeing Sony and Microsoft advertising a thing that you literally can't throw money at.
I know.
They replaced the underground signs in London at I think it was at Oxford Circus.
Okay.
They got these. So normally, I mean, you've been to London. They
Right.
have the
logo,
sort of big round circle with the underground through the middle, and Sony had these like custom ones made. So you've got the square, triangle, circle, and X. Apparently, they're only going to be up for like 2 days, and then they're moving them to the Sony headquarters, which is I think around the corner from this. But these look pretty cool. They sort of did them overnight, and then people, whoever is out and about, saw them this morning.
Yeah, because they're the same symbols as on the buttons of the controller, instead of the red circle with the blue underground sign in between.
Yeah, and I didn't realise this till later on in the day, but they've also, and this is something that companies do all the time, but they've renamed a bunch of the underground stations. So there's like Ratchet and Clank something or other. I can't remember what it is. But I think they've done 2 or 3 of those as well, which, like I say, this isn't unusual. I think the signage is a little bit unusual. I can't remember a time where they've replaced the actual signs outside. But renaming them is fairly standard for these big advertising campaigns and stuff like that.
That's cool. I like it. I mean, it's definitely fun. I mean, although I don't know at the moment in London too many people are on the underground, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's London. There's always people about, I think.
That's true.
Even in a lockdown, I think it's still, there's still people who have to go to work for whatever reason, or, are traveling, whatever it is. But it is kind of funny that there's all this advertising for, these consoles, and you can't buy either of them for love nor money. You know what I mean? Like
I think it'll be good.
I looked earlier just out of curiosity, and like, you can't buy an Xbox either. Like, it's not just a PlayStation thing. Like, you literally can't buy any of these consoles.
I kind of figured this is where we were headed, because it's just, there's too much demand. There's like demand on top of demand. They'd be popular regardless, but with people spending more time at home, there's even more demand than usual. It's probably good for Nintendo. I mean, I haven't checked recently to see how hard it is to get a Switch, but it can't be as hard as getting an Xbox or a PS5.
No, I don't think it's as hard. I think there's still places like Amazon, although they have stock, I do think the stock sells out quite quickly. Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of people, especially with the PlayStation and Xbox, who presumably are trying to get these for like Christmas presents and stuff like that.
Right.
I'm not sure. I think people are really going to struggle.
Yeah, you're probably right. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. For me, I guess I don't care, in the sense that if I don't get it, I don't get it, and then maybe I'll get a TV instead. I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, jury's still out on all that. I gotta spend my time thinking about getting gifts for the rest of my family first before I start spending money on myself.
Look, once you've done that, I give you permission to buy a TV or a PlayStation.
Right. Thank you, Rob. I'll let my family know.
Right.
This is totally okay because Rob said so.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay. Well, look, we will hopefully you will have a MacBook Air. I will have a PlayStation. And we can talk about that in like 2 weeks' time. When we come
that
back.
sounds perfect. I'll speak to you then.